As we're clicking and ticking closer to midnight, we must understand that there is a season in which, as we have spoken, in 2011, the night vision that came was not an ordinary time. It was 2,500-year prophetic cycle, a season once experienced by the prophet Zechariah during the time of the Second Temple. In the Jewish calendar, this coincides with the Shabbat of Zechariah's vision when the Lord declared, "Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit." Zechariah 4:6. It was during that sacred prophetic junction that Zechariah saw the candlesticks, the olive trees, and the golden bowl, a vision meant to lay the foundation for the restoration of Israel's temple and priesthood. Fast forward 2,500 years later, January of 2011, that the same sacred season would repeat. As I lay in the night vision, I received, and shortly in that same season, a pillar of fire appeared over the dome of the rock. It was a supernatural and unmistakable, and the vision of the olive tree that represented Israel. I knew immediately something ancient had been activated. A shift had begun, one that would awaken the blueprint for the third temple. And God's dealing with Israel once again. What followed was not mere coincidence. Year by year from 2011 to 2016, signs began to align. The visions were confirmed, and Israel's centrality in God's prophetic timepiece, as it was moving closer to midnight, became undeniable. But 2017, that year marked the beginning of major prophetic milestone. And it was in December of 2017, as the calendar was closing and the world entered the Hebrew month of Kislev in Tibet, that I was given another series of night visions. Visions proceeded that would become the greatest geopolitical and prophetic announcements since 1940s. It was in the early days of December of 2017 when the Lord granted me two powerful visions, each carrying significant prophetic weight for the days ahead. It was on December the 5th of 2017, I found myself in a cattle truck driving on a bumpy, rocky roads outside the ancient walls of Jerusalem. The jostling ride under the weight of a heavy tarp seemed to embody the rugged journey Israel had long endured. As I laid covered by the tarp, I can hear the commotion and sounds of unrest. I pulled back the tarp and looked over towards the walls of Jerusalem. What I saw in the distance sent a jolt through my spirit, smoke and fire rising beyond the walls. This was not an ordinary sight. It was a design of a divine signal of impending unrest, a spiritual fire being kindled within Jerusalem's walls, marking the beginning of something monumental. This fire was not just symbolic of war or turmoil, but the arrival of God's coming preparation for something in the future. Very, very soon. Later on that morning, I broke into an open vision. On December the 5th of 2017, this second vision unfolded before me. I found myself once again standing outside the walls of Jerusalem, but this time there was a female figure of newscaster appearing to be a reporter of some sort. Standing next to me, she was there as it was reporting these events. As I began to hear her speak, I began to look deeper into the scene as a supernatural portal opened. As a portal, I then seen something rapid happen, sequence of events, like a time lapse, all accelerating, one event after another event after another event, speed, faster than my eyes can capture, and it evolved and stopped what appeared to be the third temple. As the scenes move quickly from something happening outside the walls of Jerusalem to the restoration and the construction of the temple itself, what I saw was something being prepared outside the walls as it was leading to priesthood rituals and the beginning of something taking shape. This vision clearly showed how quickly things will begin to move and accelerate from this point on. Events would no longer be delayed, and the long-awaited restoration of Israel's spiritual center was about to unfold. It wasn't long after these visions that the confirmation came that the Lord had spoken these things. Rockets that had been fired from Gaza toward Jerusalem on December the 7th through 8th in 2017. These rockets were intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome, but the significance of these attacks could not be overlooked. These events marked the prophetic fulfillment, just as in my vision. A war and unrest began inside Jerusalem's walls. The rockets were launched in response to U.S. President Donald Trump's announcement recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. But prophetically, they served as a divine confirmation of the timing of the visions, a validation that the events seen in the visions were now moving into the public realm. The divine fire I saw in my vision reflected the spiritual and physical conflict, marking the moment in when God's hand began to stir the hearts of nations and people concerning Jerusalem and the third temple. After the vision, a divine acceleration took place. In 2018, the U.S. Embassy was officially moved to Jerusalem on May the 14th, coinciding with Israel's 70th year anniversary. This was a game-changing prophetic moment, a clear signal that the nations were no longer silent about God's plan for Israel. The Lord had shown me in those visions how events would outside the walls of Jerusalem began to accelerate, and indeed the political shifts that came in 2017 laid the groundwork for what followed. The Jerusalem Declaration sparked a prophetic shift in the hearts of believers worldwide. The church, as well as Israel, began to see that the time for the third temple was drawing near. From 2017 through 2022, things began to move at lightning speed, just as the vision had shown, as we see the key events that would happen during this time. In 2018, the year of recognition with the U.S. Embassy moved, and the 70th year anniversary of Israel's birth, global recognition of Jerusalem as the capital further solidified Israel's central role in prophecy. The nations began aligning, whether through political moves or spiritual stirrings. In 2019, the Temple Institute began to ramping up its efforts. Levite priests were trained, ritual garments were crafted, and the focus on the temple-related sacrifice vessels grew steadily. While much of this activity remained behind closed doors, it was clear the restoration was beginning. And then in 2020 to 2021, the Abraham Accords brought peace agreements between Israel and Arab nations, signaling a new era of alignment in the Middle East. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the Temple Mount became spiritual battleground as discussions about access, rituals, and preparations for the third temple continued, but fervently. By 2022, Israel's ongoing temple preparations gained public attention. More and more began to realize the third temple was no longer a distant dream, but something was coming in to reality. It was August the 17th of 2022. The Lord was giving me to listen to the message, Waters of Separation, preached by Brother Branham. This was given to me to share with some of the believers on a Wednesday night, where Brother Branham extensively spoke of the red heifer. Also, that following Sunday, Brother Joseph Branham had us listen to Going Beyond the Camp. In this same message, the theme was Hebrews 13, the centralizing, the highlighting of Christ's sacrifice outside the camp, connecting it with the bride in this message outside the camp, which originally Paul used this from Israel's purification of the red heifer. These served as a prophetic milestone of God's ancient pattern and preparing of the bride spiritually for what was emerging. It wasn't long after these tapes were played in September of 2022, a group of 5 red heifers were brought from Texas and confirmed kosher. This mirrored the vision, how accelerating things would be. But these tapes served as a divine province of God's timeline, that it shortly was after that they arrived in Israel, the red heifers, after 2,000 years. This birth that was giving to a shift that only 9 red heifers were ever sacrificed for Moses to the second temple's destruction, marking this as momentous. Since Israel's founding, this was valid candidates signaling a prophetic time of the vision. But subsequently, these 5 unblemished red heifers were imported from the U.S. in that month of September. That has now been under inspection at that time. This prophetic marker, followed by the sacrificial preparations, priestly training, ritual planning, and purification frameworks, moving forward, verifying the activity outside the walls, was now in acceleration. That same year, I was given a watchword by prophecy from the Lord to watch Rome at the end of the year of 2022. And in December, right at the very last moments of 2022, Pope Benedict passed away. I also had seen Pope Francis come into a wheelchair, and they were fulfilled that very time in that aspect of prophecy. The Lord also warned me of an earthquake that was coming in 2023 at the beginning, to watch the earthquakes at the beginning of 2023. And right at the beginning, it was fulfilled. That sign, Turkey earthquake, claiming thousands of lives. And additionally, during that same prophecy in 2022, I was given a prophetic word to watch Israel like never before. At the end, in October 2023, the Israel-Hamas war erupted, aligning exactly with the time frame that I had received it in. And throughout 2024, the conflict surged across the region. Israel, Iran proxy battles intensified in Syria and Lebanon. Global press coverage highlighted renewed rhetoric around Israel's enemies. These events mirrored the scriptural warnings of Jerusalem's days, foreshadowing a larger battle. The Temple Institute and affiliated groups moved with remarkable urgency. Public ritual lamb offerings resumed near Jerusalem's southern wall. High-level political discussions about Temple Mount access increased. Architectural proposals, underwater site scans, and surveys escalated through early 2025. February the 7th of 2025, a prophecy came forth. I would encourage you to go back and hear one of the audios that I made called I Revisited the Prophecy of 020725. The Lord had given me a pivotal prophetic message that included the prophecy of Pope Francis's health that would decline, which manifested 7 days after the prophecy. He was hospitalized. He passed soon afterward, marking the fulfillment of this prophecy. Also, in that same prophecy, the Lord said that a pope would rise from the United States. And in May the 2025, connecting spiritually, politically with Israel. This fulfilled the vision that I had back in 2018 May. If you go back to the 7 Kings, you'll find out so many things that I spoke on that audio of the Pope coming from the United States, which we also have in that also prophecy of Brother Branham giving the prophecy in 1954, December the 19th. Also, there was a prophetic warning in that same prophecy to watch Damascus, indicating the unfolding of events in Syria, now visibly aligning with the escalating conflict zones. A command to watch the Temple Mount in that same prophecy, declaring the great events, including the dramatic spiritual political turns, were imminent there. As we watch these things, oh God, in the prophecy, you will begin to see so many things in that prophecy. And from that prophecy of February, cascading the series of events that would follow. In May, that Pope would come just exactly, swiftly issues messaging supporting peace in Jerusalem, calls for the reunification of spiritual and political birthing of Israel as a nation. And as we come into June and July, Israel responds with the public gatherings on Temple Mount, pilgrimages, rituals, and symbolic restoration events. Increased speculation emerges about temple relocation plans, ceremonial offerings, and Sabbath services near the ancient altar footprint. Damascus events intensify regional conflict and political intrigue in Syria, echoing the prophecy. As we see in Revelation 17, it speaks of these 7 heads and 7 hills tied to the Vatican and Rome, as the prophecy that was given of this American Pope would bring a great shift of this ecclesiastical seat. How critical it will be in this fulfillment. As you are reaching into the deep treasures of the prophetic word that was given in the 7 Kings and what we spoke on there, which I encourage you to go visit. This Pope fits the pattern of the rise that is going to come towards the fall of all these kingdoms. We're at the very end, moving in the great transition as we are seeing it now. The convergence of the prophecy and its fulfillment of the accelerated developments until this temple. It's revealing that we have entered into one of the most critical prophetic junctions in modern spiritual history. From the sight of the fire within Jerusalem to the rise of an American Pope that will be connecting to Israel. God is layering spiritual signs across the nations. This prophetic architecture is not random. It is purpose and precise, powerful. As we had seen the precursor back when the visions were given about the era that we were moving into, of the events that served as a foreshock. Dramatic escalation, the missile fires targeting in Jerusalem continues, matching the vision. The sense of acceleration. From June 13th to 14th, Iran launched over 100 ballistic missiles towards Israel, and some targeting Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. June 17, 2025, sirens in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Iran attacks intensified. And all of these into July the 10th, Houthi ballistic missile intercepted heading toward Jerusalem. These modern events show how prophetic flashpoint of the vision, the pre-sacrificial signs leading into political supernatural shifts, and all God's timeline prophetic fulfillment. In the same month of July of 2025, not knowingly, they were performing a red heifer rehearsal for the first time in thousands of years. At the same week, in the same momentous season, I felt led to pray outside the camp, literally outside the tabernacle. The usual Wednesday prayer meeting. Brother Branham said, Jesus suffered without the camp. Now let us go beyond the camp, ready to bear his reproach. It was a signifying of a moment of a season of rejection, isolation that became a spiritual fulfillment shown in the red heifer. The next day after the prayer, the Lord spoke to me after showing me that the same season that they were performing this red heifer ritual, the Lord had called me to pray outside the tabernacle as a witness of the season we were moving into. This was the great unfolding of prophetic timeline and divine harmony of heaven's calendar of what was happening amongst God's people and Israel's actions. Each step from the red heifer rehearsals to global conflicts, confirming what the Lord had been showing. The prophet said he shows her and she receives it. She has thus saith the Lord. From the message spoken word is the original seed. It was at this time the Lord had showed me that on July the 8th of 2025, a public red heifer rehearsal was performed outside the city gates. This was not coincidence. The fire, the sacrifice, the acceleration, the rehearsal towards the third temple restoration, as God had called me personally outside the camp that very week to fall in prayer in desperation because of the rejection that is taking place amongst his elect. As we've seen the time lapse of the vision rapidly coming, as the Lord had showed in 2017, and all the time lapse that was going to happen outside the walls. Now we are witnessing prophecy right before our eyes as the bride is standing outside with him, just as the red heifer was being burned outside the camp. This red heifer that was being burned is a practice of sacrifice was being performed prior to the outside of Jerusalem's gates, overseen by rabbis and ceremonial groups. It involved red heifer disqualified for black hairs, but it was still the first ritual publicly rehearsal after thousands of years. As we are hearing the great trumpet sound, the hour is close at hand to see this great spiritual rejection that was being discerned on July the 11th of 2025 as the bride is being put out, as we see it in Hebrews chapter 13 verses 10 through 13. Let us go beyond the camp to bear the reproach, as we see from the red heifer and this great thing that would happen near Shiloh, a milestone of Israel's modern journey toward the temple restoration. The prophet of God said, So notice he rebuked them and they put him out their camp. Jesus suffered without the camp. They put him out the camp, outside, way beyond their camp. He said also, no, now let us go beyond the camp, ready to bear his reproach, hated of this world, but loved of the one who has invited us to the camp. The red heifer, as follows, according to Numbers 19, was taken outside the camp and sacrificed. It was to be wholly burned and its ashes preserved for purification of the people. This is a clear type of Christ who suffered outside the gate of Hebrews 13:11 through 13. As we have seen that this message, and Christ is again outside the church, rejected by Laodicea, just as the red heifer was rejected. This subsequence of great events that is now occurring in the time-lapse, a vision of the image that will be completed in the third temple. This was the sign of fast-moving events that is now taking place. God will deal with the Jews when the temple goes up. This shift will move into another phase of prophecy for the Jews, which is our timepiece, as we click and tick closer and closer to midnight. This prophetic agriculture is not random. It is purposeful, precise, and powerful. We've moved from prophetic windows into prophetic storms. These coming parts, as we've seen of this red heifer sacrifice and the rejection that is taking place outside the walls of the tabernacle and Jerusalem. It is the final key that unlocks the complete third temple access. May we stay alert and watch Israel as we look beyond the walls of Jerusalem. The hour is at hand. Thank you for joining us here at Simeon Ministries as we sound the trumpet in Zion, that it is clicking closer to a new day where the Messiah will return. As Simeon of old, the great Simeon was waiting for the Christ because he knew he would not see death until he would see him. There are many Jews that are waiting and longing for their Messiah. 144,000, as we will speak on the next audio of Israel's timepiece. As we come into the final close of this session, let us remember to look up, believer, your redemption draweth nigh. And those that are church member, get oil and get born again of the Spirit. And those that don't know Christ, repent, for the hour is at hand. Little bride, it won't be long before it hits midnight. We will see you in the next session. God bless you. This is Brother Christopher. Thank you for joining us. Please hit the like button and the subscription. Send it to whoever. God bless you. For Israel is moving as the heartbeat of God is pumping now. God bless you.